different layers. I'm using sounds. I did this whole series called Sounds of Ogden. I would take like sounds from the river, sounds from nature, sounds from the thunderstorm. You're gonna hear some birds in there, and I either slowed them down or I played with a bunch of different layers and put them all into one file. But it's on a baseline of it runs through all. Have you ever heard of the solfeggio? The 9 different solfeggio frequencies.
I haven't.
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Welcome to COZSNUG. Welcome back for people who've been here. Jaren.
Howdy. Hello.
Is Link coming?
I don't know. I guess
I
people
thought
will
Link
trail
was on
on
his
in, I
way.
guess.
Probably see. Yeah.
Cool. I was kind of telling you about COZSNUG, kind of what we do around here. Other than just absolutely just loving each other. The reason we really come together, we come together 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, doing different things. Tonight we do this. Just come together as a community and talk about our life and what inspires us. On other nights we do vibrational sound baths and energy kind of healing kind of things. On Wednesday we do movement, healing ourselves from the inside out. Really cool, stuff, just practices that we picked up from all over.
Right.
Okay.
The basic, when we first started doing like 3 days a week, it was because of the concept that we want to have. Remember how Benjamin Franklin talked about health, wealth, and wisdom? If you get all of them, then you got this really nice life. Well, we like to talk about that in the form of clarity, vitality, and abundance. And so Monday night is our insight night that he was referring to, and that's the night we gain our clarity, where we just find the place between our thoughts. Wednesday night, the night where we tap into accessing vitality. We do our whole body movement. Last night we call this class fluid. We're tapping into learning how to match our breathing to our awareness, to our whole body movement, and realize that we're our own healers. And then on Thursday, tonight, this is our night where we tap into where all the abundance is in each other. Because we already have access to everything, and it's all right here amongst us, but we just need to learn how to become relatable. And so this is our night where we get to practice that.
All right.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
Yeah. Did you already think of?
I thought of the question that I would ask tonight. Is there a personal passion or hobby that brings you joy in life, and what do you love most about it? I could go first. I'm definitely passionate about my hobby of practicing stillness. Something I really enjoy because even though we're always meditating, we're always in flow and aware. I really enjoy practicing that extra bit of one-pointed concentration because it really helps you from getting pulled and distracted by impulsive thinking. And the better and better more one-pointed I can get, I don't necessarily need to stay there, but it helps with a more grounded approach when things are getting more chaotic.
I don't know if it's easy to be triggerable and whatnot.
Yeah, and I don't know, it brings me a lot of joy in life. It brings me a lot of pleasant feelings in my body. I feel like being mindful of my body and becoming so much more aware of it than I was has really helped me to release a lot of unknown tension that I had, and release, honestly, I'd call it trauma, because I think everyone's holding trauma in their body. I think just learning to really just sit with yourself and learn to be uncomfortable and just sit with your feelings you don't like, it gives you so much bandwidth. You don't need to even practice so much of that. I just think the practice of looking inward and trying to observe yourself so closely.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Ash. Yeah. I love that you're passionate about that, because it spills off on all of us in a really palpable way.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Hobby or passion, something that you're passionate
something that
about.
brings you joy in life.
I'd probably say my study of law, but specifically international law, because that stuff just really interests me. It's really intriguing on the interplay of everything, on how it's called international law, but not really international. Like, it's not really a law, it's just agreements and contracts. There's no superior that can enforce any kind of a law on any of the states, so it's kind of anarchic in its existence. So I'd probably say that brings me a lot of joy when I actually do it. And
What
sit
is it?
down and
Yeah,
do
I'm,
it.
I'm, I
Yeah, I
want
want
to
to
know
know
this.
more about why does it bring you joy? Like, what really about it?
I guess because of how I was brought up, and it was kind of a tumultuous uh, upbringing. One of my earliest memories is my mom neglecting me to go party with my uncle next door and get drunk. So uh, I guess, and from that trauma, I kind of tried to seek out comprehensions and perceptions and understandings of why things the way they are, why are things the way they are, and with how my dad turned me into a sovereign citizen at 14, and I broke free at 24. That made me look at it from the lawful aspect of how things work, and so I'd say that it brings me the joy because it helps me understand more of how things work in the world. Why are things the way they are? Like, for example, with the U.S., why is it that they have the war with the Indians and everything, and they make these reservations and then still continue to not really uphold those treaties? And so understanding that, well, it's because largely there's powerful interests involved and pushing money pushing around power, as I like to call it, in a lot of those cases. But I'm just starting to go on a tangent. So it brings me joy because it makes me feel like I can understand just my everyday existence more, because part of being being a sovereign citizen was to look at, we were taught there was an international communist conspiracy to take over the world and all this kind of bogus stuff, and so from that it's already kind of at a world scale. So
human beings are not coherent enough for global conspiracies of any kind.
I agree with
That's
that.
all fabrication, and like what's happening is kind of just the natural course of what happens when we build things the way we have.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it tends to promote those sorts of ideas and projections and paranoias, because the scarcity mindset is a thing of fear.
I agree with that. And people, when they don't understand things,
Right, but they don't understand things. They make up their own understanding,
Yeah.
and then try to tell everybody that it's the truth, like consciousness does, because that's one of the like framework factors of consciousness is that it's contagious. Every consciousness wants to spread itself to other consciousnesses.
I agree with that.
Everybody wants their worldview to be the worldview. This is just the natural way.
So Kelly, when you had brought up, I hadn't heard that before about when you were young, your mom going over and partying. Was the main feeling with that just a creation of a creative chaos in your life where you didn't feel like you had stability, and then is part of it a stability thing where, like, when you understand international law, for example, once you got out of being a sovereign citizen and you're like seeing beyond the, hey, I'm just gonna dial more into like what is it a stability thing, or how would you describe that? Because what did it create inside of you? What was the feeling inside of you that you were talking about with your mom, and then what is the...
I would say it probably helped build a trauma, because it was neglect. I remember walking out the house and going over there and telling her that I was hungry and getting told, just go sit in the corner, whatever, go sit in the corner. And so, like, neglect and there's a lot more, but the words are escaping me right now. But it did build a trauma that I would say kind of put a wedge in the idea of authority in general, because parents are supposed to be authority figures, and if this one's just pissing around and not doing the responsibilities that is expected, because I was like 3, 4, so I was a toddler, and I kind of knew that she was the caregiver in the sense. So it's like, where's mom? I'm hungry, and so I would say that it did build that trauma, and then the international law stuff more stems from the sovereign citizen things, because when I was in there, I was taught that when we're born, the reason they make a birth certificate is so they can create some corporate fiction, and they call it a straw man, and every time you go into court, that's who they're dealing with, so you have to capture your straw man and your social security number, the red numbers on the back, that's a secret bank account that you somehow can get into and unlock and get into the treasury. What else was from back in that time? Because there's specific periods that I went through with all of it, and that was the beginnings. And I guess 2011 is when I got in trouble in Tremont and found the People's Awareness Coalition and got into the state national stuff that I've brought up before. And then I found my friend Philip, and we kind of traversed that together, and he had access to basically a huge firm's law library, and so he had access to go and look at law journals to get other people, like lawyers' opinions and people going through law school and their opinions on things and what the law is and so on and so forth. So we had access to that kind of stuff to be able to navigate what we were being told by the pack and law people, as they called themselves. And then just bounced. I mean, I would say that was a specific thing, because that was probably a year. It was about a year, and that was very specific compared to what Philip and I did after we got out of that. Because after we got out of that, we came across ideas that if you make a trust, you're free from the government. There's a guy named Darren Michaels that was taking seals from like Condoleezza Rice, like seals of the government, and photoshopping it onto his own documents and forging signatures and shit, and over adoption issues or something like that. And it's like, there's some far out people that are, preaching some far out things in that regard. Then after that, we found David Williams and the self-determination stuff, and went from there. But in the past 5 years, sovereign citizens think that if you get a passport by claiming that you're a non-citizen national, which you have to be from American Samoa or the Swains Islands, like the Pacific Ocean, to get that status. They think that if you get that, you're free from the government, that you're a sovereign. Some guy was preaching that you had to somehow claim your placenta and shit. I know, it's like that. I think that guy is probably a grifter, like most likely.
Far fringe.
Yeah, far fringe. Like,
What, you don't have your placenta?
I don't know if it's like.
You're supposed to eat that thing.
Right? I don't know if it's some kind of like COINTELPRO with like the FBI or the CIA, or like some kind of military psyop type shit. I don't know if that's where that guy got his info or if he's part of that. I don't care. It's sad that there's people out there like that get more coverage and following than what like David and I talk about and are trying to do. It's really saddening, but it's expected. Because not everybody wants that responsibility in existence. That's huge. And so Did I answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Always
welcome.
fascinating to hear you. You got such a brilliant mind, and you've done so much research down the veins that you've been down. It's really fascinating to talk to you about.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank you.
I want to ask what your favorite thing that you've run into has been while studying international law.
My most favorite
Yeah,
thing?
what is something that really just like was like, oh wow, it's worked that way.
Like a big aha.
Yeah.
I would have to say my realization that the people spoken of in preambles of constitutions all around the world, they're either a real or imagined people, and a lot of the times it's a small group of very powerful people with power and influence.
Well,
guiding it.
the only people that actually are represented are the signatories to the document.
Yeah, I would say so.
And,
Like,
their progeny. And other than that, the rest of us are just others.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
well-
following the document.
well, if we go into Vattel, and it's interesting because the United States, in their restatement of the Foreign Relations, third edition, that's like kind of like a legal encyclopedia for judges, so they know what the law is and like what the courts have been ruling on. And in there, it states that they consider writers of international law classical writers like Vattel, Emerdy Vattel, Samuel Pufendorf, Grotius, those kinds of people, the quote-unquote founding fathers of international law, if you want to call them that. The U.S. considers them to be authorities on international law, and so if that's the case, right in the preliminaries, Section 1 and Book 1, Section 1, it says a nation or a state's basically a body politic, or people who have combined together and united for their joint strength and benefit. And like Lincoln said, if we objectively look at, like the founding from outside of what we were taught in school, it was a group of 56 men originally that did the Declaration of Independence. There were at least 2 million Americans, or I should say 2 million British, and because at the time, because like at that time, technically, if we go off of what Vattel said in the book, in the Law of Nations, those 56 men, when they claimed to be the representatives of all of the United Colonies and all that, like anybody can adorn a cloth upon themselves and claim the authority of someone else, especially if they don't expressly disagree or say otherwise.
Well, I mean, isn't fake it till you make it the American way?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What, you guys don't know I'm the one in charge?
I mean, the whole life is just a big role playing thing. Like, put the costume on if you're gonna, and if you do, man, be it. Don't just wear it, be it.
Yeah. And so, just I would say, to answer your question, the idea of we the people, because I've found 2 articles just browsing online because Philip doesn't have access anymore. COVID really screwed everything up for him. I found one that talks about the original meaning of we the people in the context of the American system, and they bring up, are there actually 2 peoples, the federal people, the national people, and then the people of the states? And so that was like, that's an interesting thing. And then another one that said it was we the people, the constitutional origins, basically, of we the people, and that's where they talked about real or imagined, because they analyzed all the world's constitutions and like broke everything down in the article.
So if you're part of us, you're real, and if you're part of them, you're imagined.
Well, not
Is it like
exactly.
that?
Not
Is it
exactly. So, like in the context of the United States, I would say we the people was real in the sense that it was the 36 men. Well, sorry, the 39 men that signed the document, and it's imagined in the sense that they told everybody that they're the people. So, I mean, if we get into theories about what representative government is about, it's basically there's two ways to look at it. It's representatives or proxies. If you take it like a corporate type of a level, you give them the power to vote, and you can't say otherwise because you've given them your proxy. And
You've abrogated your own.
yeah, and the only way to
You're voting vicariously through them.
and the only way to change that is to vote them out and put someone else in as your proxy.
Right.
And then the other kind of more abstract and theoretical approach is that the act of voting in a representative system is transmogrifying, basically magically turning someone into like it's a transmutation, a magical transmutation type of a thing. When you vote, you're transmogrifying the representative, and they become you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're in Congress or any the Senate or the House, depending, if they're in the House, they're tens of thousands of people they represent. Well, they are those tens of thousands of people in that abstract sense when you look at it that way. And so that's why a lot of them go to their positions, then technically abuse their powers, quote unquote, in the eyes of the citizens, because they are the citizens in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
To take it from the corporate way, they are the proxies that are invested with the power. The citizens have given up their power of self-governance to these representatives. And like a book that really helped me, were you going to say something?
I was just saying in that model, it's that they could essentially put words in your mouth and say that you have said things as a proxy, that they would have the authorization to do so.
Yeah, I'd say so. A book that really kind of sank the idea that the people of the constitutions of the world are really a small group of people is a book by a really renowned American historian named Edmund S. Morgan. And he wrote Inventing the People, The Rise of Popular Sovereignty in England and America. And in the first part of the book, he goes into detail about basically the 2 or 3 or 4 civil wars of the 1600s that England had when they chopped off King Charles I's head and all that stuff. Then in the second part, he goes into basically the founding fathers and what they did. And on page 169, I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim, but he basically says, "We assume too easily that popular sovereignty was a movement by the many. It was not. It was the few garnering the opinion of the many to fight the other few who they viewed as attacking their freedoms and their rights, and like lawyers, stock jobbers, parliament, like it, all of that." And so when I read that, it's like, huh. And it was basically, it states that it wasn't the yeomen, the commoners, the farmers that declared independence, that it was their lordly neighbors. So that's a fact. Like when you go and you study the revolution, all of the anti-federalists were usually the farmers and the people that were outside in the rural areas, and they weren't part of the aristocracy and the moneyed peoples. Whereas the main proponents for like the U.S. Constitution, the consolidation, the federation, they were all the business people and the merchants and the lawyers and the smugglers and all that. There's a YouTube video by a lady named Carol Birkin called Myths of the Revolution, and it's really enlightening because she goes into detail.
Myths
of the Revolution.
Philosophy group.
I will. And she goes into detail about what led up to the revolution, and I vaguely remember in school they brought it up in history. They called them the Intolerable Acts, and that was like the Stamp Act, and that's the only one that comes to mind. But there were about 3 of them, And she says that prior to those, the colonists were all right, but then they did like the Stamp Act to tax them on, I think it was sugar and rum or whatever. They basically, England practiced what was called solitary neglect, which is a funny name in and of itself. And that's basically where they let America for about a century, like all of the colonies in the North America, do their own thing. You know, as long as you still pledge allegiance to the king, we don't care, do what you want. Well, smuggling became such a bad thing over here that England needed to put a stop to it, and so they started passing
Well, I'm sure they
the
wanted
Stamp Act,
they wanted some money out of it too.
Smuggling of what?
rum,
Tea,
sugar,
like all.
tea, tobacco.
What makes it smuggling? Rather than just trade.
Well,
Right?
good point. Smuggling because
They had to call it something that sounded like
No,
they
no.
needed to
England had to call it something because they
That's what I mean.
disapproved.
Because they wanted to
I
get
they were
agree
getting
with
money
that.
from
I agree with
tax
that.
they were smuggling.
And so Edmund Burke was a parliamentarian, and he actually coined the term solitary neglect, but he sort of was kind of on the colonists' side about with like the representation stuff, the no taxation without representation stuff. But to go back to what Mrs. Birkin was talking about, she said that a lot of the people in the colonies, they didn't want the war. When they would sell things to the mercenary army, they would just like, here's a grain of rice, a sack of rice, but this much is rice and the rest is sand. And
Really?
you know, and the reason they were eating their leather boots and stuff, well, because I've heard that story before, that they were eating their shoes and stuff because it was so cold. Well, no, it's because their shoes were falling apart because the tailors were giving them shit shoes and charging exorbitant amounts. Which
it kept them warmer in their belly than it did on their feet.
yeah, and so, which is kind of ironic because now that's what the military-industrial complex does with the government, is they charge $500 for a screw and things like that. So nothing kind of has really changed in the 250 some odd years.
Just shifted.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so her Myths of the Revolution kind of put it into perspective, because she said John Hancock's signature was the biggest because he was the one most affected by the Vice Admiralty courts and all the things they were doing to try to clamp down on the smuggling. And so he, of course he's going to declare independence. Wait, was it the Constitution or the Declaration? I don't remember.
Declaration.
Yeah, okay, so of course, because he's one of the merchants, one of the people that's going to be affected by what England's doing. So just,
He was Pablo Capone.
I guess. But I've built a YouTube playlist that I call the Lawful Facts of the U.S. Revolution, and there's a few different people on there. Carol Birkin, some guy named Andrew that talks about, I think he called it the Founders' Coup, and he talks about what they did and so on. And then another book that I really recommend for people to kind of understand what the revolution was about is called The Royalist Revolution, Monarchy and the American Founding, by Eric Nelson. And
Say the name one more time, the Royalist Revolution?
The Royalist Revolution, Monarchy and the American Founding.
Okay.
I'm going to throw that playlist in the group because has a few talks on there. But he basically says that a lot of the popular leaders at the time, which if we go back to a little quip from a book from an English judge in his commentaries on the law of England, he said that throughout time, all the popular leaders have called themselves the people. So it's just, I've seen bits and pieces from all these different sources, from US's perspective, from Vattel's perspective, revolutionary perspective. And it's just, I've seen all these, even pre-American perspective, and it's just shown me that the people is not what we're taught and what we're told they are, and that's why a lot of the, especially now in 2023.
So it's not really a democracy? We
Well,
don't really have a democracy here, Kelly?
I mean, it was never intended
Well,
to be.
yeah, it was never intended to be. It still is a republic, because a republic is where the quote unquote the people put in the representatives, but to take the people out of it is just a representative form of government. Is a republic. Vattel says that all republics are aristocracies. He basically words it that when the power of government to command is left in the hands of the people, it's a democracy.
So obvious, yeah.
When it's invested into a Senate, into a small group of hands, into a Senate, it's an aristocratic republic. And if they keep it in the hands of one person, it's a monarchy. But the three types of government can be interchanged and commingled.
So you're saying that democracy is more akin to anarchy without rulers?
Well,
A proper democracy.
I would say that a democracy in that sense, like how Vattel describes it, would be like kind of how it is with Switzerland and how they have their direct democracy. And so the rulers in that regard would be all of the people who.
How does it work
vote.
over there, just to summarize that for us?
So if I understand correctly, they have local stuff in their cantons or their cities, and then the cantons, I think, are kind of like our states, because they're a confederacy. Well, I guess they're a federation now. But anyways, so it's just, I think when it's a local thing, they vote there. If it's more of a canton issue, they'll have a vote of all the people in the canton. And if it's a federal issue, the whole country votes, because it's a direct democracy, from my understanding. Where here it's a limited democracy in the sense that so prior to the amendment that made it so we popularly elect the senators, it used to be that the representatives would elect the senators from themselves.
Yeah.
And so from there, it wasn't until that amendment that we became a quote unquote democracy, and a limited one in that, because prior to that, it was you would vote your representatives in, and then from there, they would vote in who they want to go and represent the state and the federal government. So it wasn't until that amendment that the people at large were able to start to vote in those positions as well. And if we look at the Electoral College, the popular vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Trump didn't win it, and there's been people in the past who didn't win it, and they still became president. It's up to what the electors decide. So from there, and
Who are not representatives.
who are not representatives, they're elected by the representatives in their states, and they might not even be well, I think a lot of them make it so you cannot be a representative, that you have to not be in that position at all. And so just from that, it's so clamped down to try to keep the power out of the hands of the populists, the popular people.
Well, it's sort of nepotist, yeah.
Yeah. And we can go back and read letters of the foundings to themselves, and a lot of them didn't trust the common people. They thought they were incapable of government. So.
Well, I mean, that's because half of them were still illiterate, or more.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to manage things if you can't read the things in front of you.
It's like,
I don't agree, or I do agree. Like,
So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. That was
You're
that
welcome.
was a lot. Thank you
sorry.
very much.
Sorry
Don't
to come
apologize. We drew all that out of you, and we wanted it.
Well, I look at that as more talking about law instead of being political, because to me being political would be discussing like what's going on right now with the current president and why they're supporting things they are and things of that nature. That's not, I don't care, because with my self-determination stuff, if I'm really gonna eventually go through with it, part of I would call it customary international law now, because it's been a treaty since 1933. And the world pretty much follows it and has. I started babbling too much. I lost my train of thought.
sweet. So we're only a decade off from the centennial anniversary.
Yeah, actually, wait. Yeah.
Are we in 24 now? No, that's
No,
next year.
we're 11 years away. Yeah, from the centennial of that That's a good thing to keep on. Actually, yeah.
That's a good target date.
Yeah. And so, that's right. So in that treaty, it says that the internal and external policies of affairs of nations are their business, and interfere with it's to breach international law and to interfere with their rights. And so if I'm really going to try to build my own country, like I have thought for about a decade now or so, like if I'm really going to do that, I can't care about what the president is doing. Like that's their business. My business is I'm just trying to survive in the environment, this aristocracy, which if we go off of what Princeton said, it's an oligarchy. They've all the aristocracies turn into oligarchies, turn into totalitarian governments. Look at Rome.
It's a natural course of events.
That's how it happens. And so I'm just trying to survive in the environment that's been created around me since before my birth. And, I used to be gung-ho, pretty patriotic. However, when my dad was like, oh, 9/11 was an inside job, or like, we're gonna invade Iraq after this. I'm like, no. And then we invaded Iraq, even though it was supposedly people from Afghanistan that invaded us. That's when I kind of started to go, what's going on here? Like, why? This isn't what? And so just with that, and then getting in trouble with the law and finding out how the police really are, and that's 180% completely different from what I was told. Just experiences, my most, like 95% of my experiences with anything from the government has been pretty, like they just want to keep me under their boot kind of a situation. And I don't like that.
They're not having
That's-
COZSNUG conversations.
Yeah,
yet.
and
Is
for
that what
me
you're saying?
in my life, that's not stable, and that doesn't follow what I've come to learn about how the systems work under the international system. Like, it makes sense why nobody's coming into the U.S. and saying you can't do that to the Native Americans, because there's no quote unquote sovereign above all the other states to say, oh, you're going to get punished for what you're doing. There's nothing. And if we go back to World War II, the world didn't give a shit what Hitler was doing until he invaded Poland. Like, let's be like, that's the realistic aspects of it, and it's shitty, but that's.
Well, maybe we as people need to authorize extraterrestrial intervention.
Maybe that can be slightly dangerous in my opinion, though.
Yeah, I mean, not any worse than where we're at. I mean, at least we'll have better technology.
It depends on which, because if you, it's tricky, my friend.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I'm gonna end on that note because I've been taking up too much time. So
that little curveball right there.
no.
I'll pitch them all day long.
Thank you, Kelly. That was
You're
so
welcome.
nice. I love how passionate you are about all that. It inspires us to tap in and try to find me. It helps me tap into inner true strength.
Right.
And I juxtapose that now very easily up against all the stuff that I was propping up as all this empowerment, what my idea of empowerment was in the past. Now I understand how limiting that really was. A bunch of false empowerment, anything external, like, hey, here's where your power is out here. It's just so clear that we're truly powerful on the inside. That's where all of our power's at.
Well, the way that I look at it is the world has been fashioned in such a way that if we want to show anybody, like, call them the powers that be, the rulers, whatever, like,
Just call them the status quo.
Yeah.
They don't even deserve that much.
Yeah.
Recognition is already.
if you want to show the status quo that you're truly empowered all the way holistically, I think the only way to do that is to come make your own state like the founding fathers and every other free people since then have done. Because it shows, it's essentially the act of moving out from your parents' house and building your own, making your own rules and building up your own foundation and your own home that you can call yours, just like in the legal sense the founding fathers did, and United States of Mexico has done, Haiti did, like all these countries that have declared independence when the United States made the model, they've all kind of stepped out from their parents, their in the sense, and formed their own houses.
Isn't it over? I mean, how many? Yeah, how many are there? Over 180, aren't there? Like,
So I would
that was a long
say
time ago.
I would say
I think it was
there's
192.
there's like recognized about 206 to 215 subjects of international law is what they're called. So that's states and like the Vatican, the Knights of Malta, and a few other kind of entities like that. I would say like the city of Monaco. That's in southern France, right?
Monaco?
Yeah, Monaco's in. Yeah, that's a city state. Like Hong Kong, I think, is a city state or used to be a city state.
No, I think they still are. They're just not British anymore.
That's right. They're Chinese.
Well, kind of.
Well,
China's been having a lot of problems with Hong Kong.
They're communist, I should say, because Chinese is Taiwanese, but we're not going to get into all that. So, yeah. What was the question again?
Yeah, the link you got here, you know.
Yeah, let's.
The question.
Link,
we're
did you
talking
hear
about-
what the question was?
Yeah, no.
Nope.
The question tonight is there a personal passion or hobby that brings you joy in life? And what do you love most about it?
He's got a few of those.
Yeah. Expanding people's minds. Or at least, doing the stick and carrot thing to get them there on their own. That's psychedelics have been a huge part of that, more in the past than present, but incredibly essential tool, especially for previous decades and pre-millennium, especially for enabling people to see past the programming, coming from the depths of within it. And now it's like, I know people all over the place, like as soon as they quit their 9 to 5, whatever, executive, managerial, what, it doesn't even matter. The people who just quit the regular, what I'm supposed to do by social and economic standards to what my heart tells me I should do. And all those people tell me the same thing. I never even realized how trapped I was until I wasn't. And psychedelics, I've had that effect hugely. I mean, from the '60s onward, for being able to create that awareness prior to actually having to make that step, so that people can, I mean, like in the case of like Paul Stamets and Alexander Shulgin, and a lot of these big names in the psychedelic community, they were able to figure out, oh, we need to do this, and start promoting that idea and providing pathways to do it and building organizations to help spread that type of information.
Creating stability around the concept.
Right. But like I said, but now it's like people are just stepping out of it and then they're looking back going, whoa, I was in that thing?
It's like, well, there's more stability here.
Be like, I wish people could tell people about that, but you like how would I have received it, And then there's like, it just wouldn't have made sense to me. But now that it's so stupid and easy to see that. Now how do I tell people, then that's kind of the catch-22 of it that I've noticed with a lot of people, and that's again where I found that psychedelics can be a pretty powerful tool for maybe not necessarily opening the door, but at least turning the latch and getting it cracked.
One thing that I have been inspired by you, Link, probably the easiest way to say it would be like your words or whoever you were quoting. When we go out to the desert, for example, the way that you interact with nature and the way you're finding, I see the joy in you, like to just go and walk on the rocks, just go climb the rocks and just be, and that whole concept of, I was laying there with you one time, I was like, oh, this is exactly what Link meant when he said, if you're not a part of the furniture, you're probably doing it wrong. And I said, yeah, if you're not a part of the neighbor's furniture, you're probably doing it wrong. But I was like,
well, I also like totally just kind of cringe at the idea of the four walls and a ceiling thing. So yeah, that's not just an indoor thing at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, not at all. I thought I was inspired by that. It helps me in my life to see how much glee you got out of that. So the joy that it was bringing me joy because I was learning how to empower myself to be more present with nature. Like I've gained a lot more respect for being one with nature by being around you.
Something I feel like I could do better at, or not even, not maybe not necessarily better, but more frequently.
Right.
I'd like to comment on the part about the psychedelic site. I agree to a large extent. I saw a quote, I don't remember when I did, in the past month or two. It said that psychedelics open the mind, but not all minds should be open, and I kind of do agree with that too.
When I first started, it was a pretty reckless venture. Like I did my damnedest to make sure that anybody who was going to venture into that realm would have a hand to hold for the initial or initiatory process. People who didn't do that and don't do that, those people should not be doing that.
I agree.
Want to peel off your cocoon too fast.
Psychedelics are not a commercial commodity. It's just to be sold for the sake of selling them.
Right.
That's incredibly foolish way to go about things. I know because I've seen it happen, and to some extent have let things go with people who I thought were or even postured themselves as experienced. And then I find out later on that they've got bad things to say about an experience that they had or about psychedelics themselves.
Breeding more chaos.
Because they willy-nilly were enthusiastic about something that they had not bothered to do any research or preparation for.
Right. Lack of intentionality.
Yeah.
Mm. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Thank you. Do you have anything you want to talk about or?
A passion.
A passion and that I have is I like cooking.
Cooking.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
So I don't really like cook too much, but I just like being able to choose what I want to eat, and like I know what ingredients are going into it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel you.
I see.
And
I
I don't
see
like
culinary
COZSNUG
coming up.
That's a beautiful thing at an individual level because when you're just making yourself something from scratch, you're basically if you're on the right level about it, you're basically just listening to whatever the hell your body is telling you.
Yep, that's a huge thing.
And
too.
then it's getting exactly what it needs that way.
Yep, and I don't like bringing corporate more money like McDonald's. Yeah, no. I'm guilty of stopping there every now and again, but I get like a Coke or something, or a McFlurry. Just like when my sweet tooth is hitting me.
Arby's
I
Jamocha shakes. I would
yeah.
go to Arby's just for them.
Those are
I
good.
forgot about those. Ever since I was a kid, I was like every time I go by an Arby's, like they have the Jamocha thing in there.
Sometimes it's all right to splurge, as
Yeah.
long as it's not a consistent thing because of how unhealthy that stuff is. So
Yeah, it is unhealthy, and I've gotten a lot healthier over the last, 3 to 4 years compared to where I was at. So
What kind of stuff do you like to cook the most?
I like smoking meat.
oh, so you're the one with the smoker?
Yeah.
Do you do like you do brisket and all the long stuff and?
No, I've done not a brisket. I haven't done a brisket yet, but I got I just had it. It's like the poor man's brisket.
The flank like an iron,
A f-
flank steak,
Yeah.
steak or a flat iron.
Yeah. I can't think of what it's
You
called.
could probably turn a tri-tip into a brisket.
Yeah, tri-tip.
Maybe
That's
tri-tip,
actually it. Yeah,
tri-tip.
tri-tip.
Okay, there
The
we
poor
go,
man's
tri-tip.
brisket. Yeah. It
I
has.
tried to though, cooked well is amazing.
Yeah,
It's so
it
good.
can be.
Oh, yeah.
It really can be.
I don't know why it's poor. Man, it's anything.
Yeah, no,
It's
thank
that
you.
amazing.
Right.
Right?
That's good.
Well, compared to something like Wagyu, it's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, it is good. And then I kind of got into cooking with cannabis a lot.
Oh, really?
So
That is an art.
hmm
People do
Interesting.
not understand that cannabis does not blend with most of the crap they put it in.
Yeah. Well, and I like making it strong, so I mean, I don't try to hide the cannabis taste.
No,
You can't.
So
you build you make it your foundation and build with it. You don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to work the flavors around the cannabis. You
Yeah,
can't,
absolutely.
You can't try to hide the cannabis.
No.
by making random
And so you
flavors.
just essentially make the butter and then make everything with that, or did you
Yeah,
do a whole bunch
so-
of other kind of things?
Kind of make the butter, put it in the fridge. I mean, usually enough for 2 to 3 meals or whatever you're gonna cook with. Or say it's like a whole thing of mac and cheese. Mac and cheese takes a lot of butter. I mean, you're gonna throw it all. So I make what I call smack and cheese.
Smack.
You eat it, it'll smack you. I smoke it too, because you can't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you want to go low and slow when you're cooking with cannabis, to make it to keep the potency.
Well,
Or else you'll burn off some of the
Yeah, you
dynamic
can.
range of it.
Well,
Yeah.
like 160 degrees is where decarboxylation occurs, which makes it active. And you get up to above like 180, 190, and you start losing terpenes
Losing all your
and
terps and stuff,
cannabinoids
yeah.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you got a very narrow range to work in.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, cooking at like 220, smoking for 3 hours, the mac and cheese might get up to 190. I don't necessarily try to keep terpenes though. I mean, when you're making the butter, most of them are gone by then.
Well, I mean, hopefully, really, because like most terpenes are technically solvents.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I really like cooking. That's one thing I'm passionate about. And it just kind of puts me in my own little world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just focused on what's in front of me.
You usually do it on your own?
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried cooking, so I've had a couple of girlfriends that I've tried cooking with, and now I'm better off alone cooking. I love when they cook, but I'll leave them alone too, because I know what it's like to kind of.
Oh, gotcha. So it's like a meditation moment. for you.
Yes,
It's like
exactly,
Zen
it
time.
is.
And do you cook for
It is
would-
definitely
I mean, Would
meditation.
you cook for like the both of you? Would you just cook yourself for the both of you?
Oh
Or-
yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I'm not just cooking.
Guys, I'm gonna cook this, and I'm the only one that gets to eat.
No, never. Yeah, that's a huge thing. Another meditation thing I really like doing is just I like going out west and just walking around, looking at the ground, kind of.
What do you mean west?
West Box Elder. There's a lot of cool stuff out there that you would never think existed.
Like what?
So like out there by Devil's Playground.
Yeah, Devil's
Oh, out there.
Playground,
Oh,
or
out
like
there.
all the old natural springs out there. And there used to be a lot more water out there than you would think, just as recent as 50 years ago.
It was stupid green this year.
Yep, it was really green this year, all year out there.
It probably
too.
still is, dude. There's still trees on leaves on.
So
the
there's a
trees.
bunch of natural springs out there.
Yeah, a lot of them are old now. I mean, the water level's low since the Salt Lake levels dropped. A lot of the spring levels have dropped out there. Yeah.
Mm.
I
I don't
just-
know, we used to go get watercress out by Grouse Creek.
Well,
Out
Grouse
by
Creek is
Grouse
right
Creek,
next.
okay.
Grouse Creek is the closest place to Devil's Playground, Brandon.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, it is.
literally right
And
next.
then right when once you get through Grouse Creek, I mean, it's just a couple
My
miles on
family
the road.
is, I'm a Tanner, they're all Tanners and Kimbers in Grouse Creek,
Okay,
but yeah, I went to school there
okay,
off and on.
that's interesting.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a lake
not a
out
lot
there.
of people are familiar with it out there.
Oh,
Few and far between. So yeah, that's neat. And another thing I like about going out there is kind of you get alone in your head. You can kind of manifest your own ideas and just get away from the city or like.
Well, you get out of the waves and the electromagnetic pollution.
Yep. Yeah, you got to tune out a lot of that pollution.
Do it barefoot works better.
And they were on to something. Staying barefoot, they could cover their feet when they needed, but.
I do know about this. Yeah, I discovered hiking barefoot in Hawaii, in Haleakala, big volcano. Did this whole hike, and I felt like by the time I was coming back, I felt like my feet were like going like 15 feet down in the ground each time I took a step. Just felt like I was one with the. So different than walking with shoes on.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
the ground has things to say too through vibrations and frequencies.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. I know exactly what you mean by that.
It does.
Yeah, all the animals except for the ones wearing shoes scramble before the earthquake hits.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yes. Ah, it's coming.
Well, thanks for sharing.
I'll share. I share something that you basically you made me think, because I could say so many. I'm passionate about so many different things, but one thing that is just clearly a true passion of mine that I've discovered in the past several years is kitchen dancing while cooking and tasting along the way, and just the whole concept of moving my body with music that's perfectly curated for whatever food kind of thing we're gonna.
Dance always,
Right.
even in your words.
Thank you. Love it. That's just it just, my insides are just swelling with joy. I'm just bubbling with just, I'm like giddy. Like, this is the best kind of living.
I've seen it before.
It's good living. I can see us having a culinary COZSNUG here coming up soon. We gotta cook some, I mean, what brings us together, right? We're not cooking food more often.
We might have to go to Logan and do a COZSNUG at Cassie's new house.
Let's do it. She just got a new place?
Yeah, they're moving into. I'm going up there after this. I'm gonna probably go see Brady on the way, and I'm probably up there overnight.
We were just talking about that, about finding let's start doing it at random places
Help them do
everywhere.
some moving tomorrow and stuff.
That'd be way cool.
Yeah, let's do one up in Logan.
Oh, dude, she'd be thrilled to not have to come down here to do it because she wants to go to all of them.
I know. Let's do it. Well, that actually gets, and we can hit the north, and then the next week we can go down. Frankie wants to do one at her place. We haven't done it down in Salt Lake yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of potential hosting in Salt Lake. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and some,
Matt
and
would
some,
love to
and some,
probably do
and some
one.
of them may not even know that it exists yet.
Right. I can think of some of those places.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Ken.
Very welcome. Sometime soon we'll be shaking our booties together, I'm sure. Well, we've already shaken our booties together, kind of.
It's true.
That was one of my favorite musical experiences I ever had in my entire life up to this point.
I'm glad I was able to help.
Passions. Man, just showing people that they are in charge of their own life, regardless of what they're told. That's I mean, really the baseline that's even below the psychedelics is just
Empowerment. True empowerment.
showing people who they are.
It's beautiful to watch us
Or helping
bubble-
people discover
bubble
it
up
on
and
their own.
emerge.
How are you, Brandy? Anything you can think of?
Probably like a passion,
Passion that brings you joy.
right? I wouldn't, like at first I wasn't thinking this was much of a passion, but it's something that I've really listened to, and I feel like I was forced into it, but now I'm really good at listening to my body. Like as far as, I mean, even just food and substances, rest, and activity. Like I've gotten really good at, because being diabetic, I was forced to just have to pay attention to what I was eating and knowing, okay, Thanksgiving, I know I'm going to be sick for a day after. Like I'm just going to give myself that. Or if I want to binge on food, I'm forced to know it's not going to go well for me and I'm going to have to get sick from it or deal with not sleeping for hours to make sure I'm giving myself insulin, checking sugars, this, ups and downs. But I've learned now, like through food and even just how I'm feeling, it's better not to eat. Like it's easier to manage my health if I'm not eating. But we need food. Like our body needs substance. So I've learned to know what my body needs and when to eat. And certain foods, like fried foods, I love, and I'm a binge and we'll have fried food because I'll have a craving, but I know, like, I can go like
Easy.
8 hours.
Easy to love, but nobody should ever make the mistake of thinking that they love us.
Right.
Yeah.
We just had an experience with that like three days ago.
Hmm. But then I'm good. Like, I'll go like 8 hours. I need nothing to eat after eating the wrong types of foods. So I've learned to pay attention and certain things my body doesn't like with substances. It tells me right away, and so I've just learned to listen to that. And the same with sleep. Like, I know when I'm tired, it's like I'm done. And my emotional state, I'm now working on that same level because I've always prided myself on being the very non-emotional girl of the group. Like, non-PMS.
It's a thing to be proud of.
It's when I have, but now I'm not experiencing joy and happiness and excitement because everything is just me.
Well,
And so I'm
interesting.
now it's like, okay, I don't even know what I'm feeling half the time. So it's like I gotta sit with this and figure out.
And that's part of what happens when you find that really stoic place is that when you have your don't have those big fluctuations, you start to become incredibly sensitive to the ones around you.
Yes, and I'm
And
learning.
it shoots that empathic
Yeah.
ability so far up the roof that you like find yourself all like, then you realize, this isn't even mine. Where did this come from? Like there's no
Yeah.
cause for this. This is not mine.
Mhm.
And you have to get really
Well, and I'm even there
present-minded
with
about
my
that.
own, like my own emotions, and I'm
Mhm.
like, what is this? Like, when something doesn't feel right, I don't know still. Is it a bad? Is it good? Or, I mean, it's just uncomfortable. It just feels chaotic sometimes. So I'm right now really working, and I'm having to, for poor Ken's sake, like, I'm exploding, and after holding certain things in that aren't feeling right, all of a sudden I'm just like, enough. And poor Ken's getting the brunt of these crazy emotions that, because for a while I'm like sitting with certain scenarios and I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't know what to think about it, but I'll let it go till it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, now I can't do this anymore with these
But
emotions.
the attempt is made, and then when you reach the point of time to communicate that this is not working,
Right.
without
Right.
saying anything unhealthy about it, it's just.
And I would like to be able to communicate earlier
Yes.
before that happens.
Yeah.
Could
But I don't-
alleviate the pressure
Right.
of that.
But I don't
Communication
know
does happen.
exactly. I don't know what it is. That's the thing. It's like I don't
Not the
know
words.
where I'm feeling off until it's
Hmm.
then. Yeah, because I let things go like very easily.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hang on to stuff. I don't hold grudges until I see the same pattern. It's got to continue.
Well,
for
at
a
that point, it's
while.
not a grudge. It's hey, what the fuck? Like, pay attention, because I'm seeing it, and if nobody else is, then I'm gonna say something, you know.
Yeah.
And that's proper in any proper social structure environment. Like,
Right. And I feel like, yes, I've got to release that because that's what I learned with trauma growing up as well, is just to forget about it, don't react to it, don't be emotional. But at that same time, I'm not experiencing the happiness and the joy and the excitement as well that I want. I think because I'm suppressing one end, I'm not feeling the other. So I need to
contrast.
balance.
Contrast.
I need to find
the pain and the pleasure kind of help each other to expand.
Right.
And they have a really delicate interplay once you really learn how to tap in and say, hey, I used to call that pain. Now I'm like
Hanging from
realizing
suspension
that
hooks
it
in the
used
forest.
to still be called the pain thing, but I'm like, I'm blissing out here. There's so many different ways we could talk about that.
So when I got in trouble in 2015 or whenever, when Tyler
Oh,
did
that
all
one.
that
Okay,
shit,
yeah.
when my ex-roommate called the cops on me to try to send me to prison when I was moving out, I was forced into mandatory like counseling, drug counseling type shit, and I went to a place called Capstone Counseling, and one of the teachers, well, not teachers, but one of the instructors in there came up with a technique that I've actually used to help me realize when I'm getting to a point that I'm going to start to explode, because I kind of have the same problem. She made us draw out a snake and then kind of segment it out in certain ways and make sure that there was for sure a middle point, and say, okay, well, the snake, the tail is something that is when I'm at peace, and then the head is when I'm lashing out and being the snake and attacking. And so what are the things that I can see in my own self that bother me that build that snake? And that really helped me. So maybe that could be something that could help you too, is to maybe sit down and draw it out and think of, okay, well, I'm at peace when this is going on, or I feel these kinds of emotions and energies when I'm at peace, and this is what's happening when I've become the snake. And
I'm at
I'm
peace when I
lashing out.
swallow my own tail.
I was gonna say maybe we should have a shark day.
Maybe. I don't know if it works in that context. That's to me, coming from the trauma I
Well,
have,
it has to
that's
work. It has to work in that context.
that's kind of a
because everything
vicious
is
cycle. Well, yeah, but
Because everything's connected, so it's like your peace was.
When you are
definitely
finding
right
balance,
here.
that's where it is. Your peace and what is really bothering you, it's right here. You got to know that balance
That gives you clarity.
in between.
If your tail is in your mouth, there's going to be some discomfort.
right. So
So
I
working, did you say drawing that out when you are ready to explode? Like
no,
doing it back?
she said that to do it any time, just to kind of like
You can just do it in your mind.
get
Based
the
on a scenario,
get
like-
the picture. Yeah, like
using it as a model to structure and
Metaphor.
framework. The
on every
emotional progression.
yeah, and so having, because I used to burst out a lot when I'd get frustrated. When I still get frustrated, but I've used that technique enough that I can recognize when I'm going to explode. So I'll just bail out and leave and go on a walk or something. But the idea of that snake in the middle ground, when you pass that middle of that snake, is when you're basically in the danger zone, and it usually progresses into the head. Is how she explained it, and that's how it was for me in my own life when I would get my frustrations and then explode. And so I would just do it anytime, or like even tonight if you want, just think of some things that have been bothering you and draw it out on the snake, like the snake. This isn't going to bother me about it, and this is what it bothers me about it, and determine in yourself where that emotional, that balance in those two are. And then if that scenario comes up again, you can try to harken back and remember, okay, if I stay on this side of that balance, I'm not going to go and tip over and get imbalanced and lash out and become angry and things like that. So I know it helped me, so maybe it could help you too.
Okay.
Or
Yeah,
some
thank you.
or some kind of diagram like that. So I liked the snake metaphor because snakes are calm until you piss them off, and then they lash out.
Yeah,
So
they're very snappy creatures, that's for sure.
yeah, and so it made sense to me at the time. So
The only one out of all of them that has a middle ground is a rattlesnake, and that's only because he's got a damn rattle on his tail.
yeah,
It's the kindest of all of them. Got that, hey, I'm over here.
I wouldn't say kindest. Most civil, certainly. But
Most
that doesn't,
civil.
but that doesn't mean kind.
Yeah, most civil.
Garter snakes don't really bite, do they? They don't bite.
I got bitten
I've
by
seen them
a
try
Oh,
to.
really?
I've seen it. Yeah, they'll latch on. a little
They'll
bit,
latch
but
onto you, yeah.
They're not.
Not
They're
really
not
hurt that
right.
much.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, but like.
and that's only if you like irritate them and make them fear for
Quite.
their
Right.
life.
Which
Quite.
is,
They would rather run away.
Yeah.
They really would.
So thanks for
All
sharing.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank you for
you.
sharing.
I hope that kind of gives a different perspective on how to get a handle on the blowing up that you
That I do.
yeah
Well, we're all learning, we're all working on ourselves.
exactly.
That's why we're here.
Beautiful thing.
Thank you everyone so much for sharing tonight.
Yeah, thank you,
Sorry
everybody.
about there.
Well, thanks for letting it run over. I would rather have it come to a natural conclusion than get on a timetable.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
Agreed.
very much how I feel as well. So I thought it was very natural and just let it go and how it should be.
Well, thanks for hosting as always. Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
having
them
it in the
for
house.
hosting.
Thank you guys for letting me come
Totally.
into Coach
So
Snug.
nice to have you
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we gotta
You're
get
always welcome.
Aaron here next week. I was running so late, I forgot to even get ahold of him. But Aaron, he's kind of like a Brady. He's been kind of not social for a good bit, and he's like, I need good people to be social with. I was like, cool, we got you.
Where's he?
He's one's like he's on 25th.
Oh, here in Ogden.
Yeah, he's like a 3-minute drive from Carly's.
Oh, cool.
That's Gilbert.
Peace, and,
That's our fat cat.
peace, love, unity, and respect.
He's a pretty cat.
Gotcha.
That's right.
I like his coat.
Yeah, he's.
Oh, he's super friendly.